Call the meeting to order. Call the roll.
Trustee Healy?
Here.
Trustee Katsinas?
Here.
Trustee Milani?
Here.
Trustee Compass?
Here.
Trustee Reardon?
Here.
Trustee Radiszewski?
Here.
Mayor Peacock?
Here.
Please rise for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And before we start, I want to welcome Joni back to the board floor. We've missed you. Thank you very much. I know how much she likes being called out like this.
I love it.
Welcome back.
Approval of the October 3rd, 2022 Committee of the Whole minutes.
Mr. Mayor,
Trustee Katsinas.
I move to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of the Committee of the Whole of October 3rd, 2022.
Second.
Call the roll.
Trustee Katsinas?
Aye.
Trustee Radiszewski?
Aye.
Trustee Healy?
Aye.
Trustee Milani?
Aye.
Trustee Compass?
Aye.
Trustee Reardon?
Aye.
Mayor Peacock?
Aye.
Orland Park Health and Fitness Center Management Services.
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Milani.
move to recommend to the Village Board to approve awarding a 3-year contract to Power Wellness commencing January 2nd, 2023 with a 2-year renewal option, and to authorize the village manager to enter into a contract with Power Wellness subject to village attorney review.
Second.
Ray, if you'd like to give the presentation.
Absolutely. Good evening, Mayor and board members. So the Orland Park Health and Fitness Center was acquired by the village back in late 2016. In 2017, the village entered into a contract with Power Wellness to operate the facility all the way through January 1st of 2020. In the fall of 2019, we extended that contract into 2023, so we're expiring at the end of this year. We went out and did an RFP and received 2 proposals from that RFP. One was from Power Wellness, who's the current operator, and the other one was from HealthPlex Associates. HealthPlex Associates is headquartered in St. Mary's, Georgia. They operate 13 centers around the country with 423 employees. They operate centers that include hospitals, universities, and medical centers. Power Wellness is located here in Illinois in Lombard. They operate 30 centers around the country, 2,200 employees, 70 in a home office, which supports the local and nationwide operations. And they operate centers around that include hospitals, universities, and municipalities. Sorry. We had a interview group that consisted of staff from our department. That was the assistant director, our financial analyst, our customer service supervisor, and our sportsbike supervisor. So together, we evaluated the proposals, which included all these criteria here. So the history, the qualifications, with the Health and Fitness Center having the lap pool and the warm water therapy pool, 2 steam rooms, 2 saunas, and 2 whirlpools. We thought that was critical. The overall staffing plan, group exercise schedule, personal training, marketing for each, peripheral programs and events, services, member services, retention and sales, collections, incidents, emergency responses, cleaning, which is critical to these types of facilities, customer satisfaction, financial and membership reporting. We had an interview with each of them, and then just discretionary points. So you can see here, HealthPlex Associates scored 112 out of the possible 180 points, and Power Wellness scored 147. HealthPlex Associates each provided a pro forma, a transition plan, and opening and closing protocols. HealthPlex Associates estimates first-year revenues at a loss of a little over $152,000. Over 5 years, they project $1.3 million in net revenues. Power Wellness projects a first-year revenue of a little over $6,000 and 5-year net of a little over $780,000. The transition plan for HealthPlex includes trying to keep all the existing staff. That would include interviewing them, evaluating pay rates and compensation, creating a new control chart, which would be their organizational chart, and then retraining staff. They would expect a seamless transition, meeting with members, reviewing past surveys to find out the strengths and weaknesses, initiating a new survey to meet members' needs, establishing guest relations training, and evaluating the existing rates and fee structure and proposing potential new fees. Their opening and closing protocols would be in full compliance with the village's expectations, whether that's weather-related or anything else. Power Wellness, their transition plan, they really wouldn't have one since they've been operating the facility for the last 20 years, and they confirmed that they also would be in full compliance with the village's expectations as it relates to opening and closing. Pro forma is a little hard to read. Sorry, it's kind of small there, but you can see over the 5 years that in the first year, you can see the loss that the Healthplex projects, and you can see the overall total for both of them, the $1.3 million for Healthplex, and then a little over $700,000 for the Power Wellness.
What were our revenues? What are they projected to be in 2022? And what guarantees do we have that expenses aren't going to go above those?
There really are no guarantees on expenses for either of them. One of the things that Power Wellness has been doing much better, as they haven't in the past, is they are handling all the maintenance fees in the facilities. The only fees that they don't handle right now are those that relate to capital. This year, they're projecting still a bit of a loss as they recover from the pandemic. Under $50,000, I believe, is the projected loss this year.
How much in total revenues are they projecting?
You know, I don't have that with me right now. It's a little over $2 million. I can get you that if you want it.
Trustee Reardon.
That's a $600 and some thousand difference over those time periods. What's the main, is there a main factor as to what?
Yeah, I'll go through a little bit more here. So the numbers look really good the way they are there, but I have some suspicions on the numbers. So I put that in the presentation for your consideration. So the Healthplex does project salaries the first year at $1.8 million, over 5 years at $9.8, with yearly FTEs at 35.23. Power Wellness projects first year expenses for wages at 1.7, almost 1.8, 5 years at 9.2 with 33 FTEs. Healthplex, so here's where we think that there's some holes in the Healthplex proposal. We believe that they underestimated their expenses. So they didn't include any expenses for service contracts. So that would be your HVAC, your boilers, things like that. They didn't include any equipment replacement, or Power Wellness projected $72 million. And just to back up, service contracts, Power Wellness projects $81,000. And as operators of the facility, they know that you have to have those service contracts to keep the facility operating. Power Wellness projects unforeseen expenses, so that's for miscellaneous things that come up, because those kinds of things happen in any facility, at $32,000, where the Healthplex didn't project any expenses on that category. IT expenses, so that can be a big expense for the village. So the Healthplex doesn't project any expenses. They depend on the village to operate the phones, all the computer systems, everything that takes place there. So in speaking with IT, we expect that to be a large expense if we were to take that on. The IT from Power Wellness is all handled in the corporate office, so they back everything up there. We do provide support in the amount of, that's a per year average at $58,000. That's to support the systems there, where Healthplex projects $13,000 per year just for the operating software.
So going back to that, so
Sure.
our wellness is saying, so we're saying that we support that at $58,000 a year?
That's part of the operating budget.
So so let's go back to the pro formas. So the pro formas don't include that.
Correct.
They're saying a net operating, that's not really a net operating income.
No, it's a net expense. It's all total net expense for Power Wellness.
Okay, but we're the ones providing that support.
It's part of that total operating budget, yes.
Right, but we're the ones providing that support.
Absolutely.
So their contract, how is their contract paid out as far as operating income?
They receive a monthly amount. They have just like other village budgets, there is an amount set for the whole year, and then they draw off that through the year. So they send us an invoice once a month for us to review all the expenses, and then we provide the funding for that.
And what about the operating income? What happens with the operating income that we generate?
The income all goes to the revenue account, the village's general revenue account.
Okay, so we benefit from the operating revenue being positive. They don't get any of that?
Correct. The only revenue that they receive, they receive a management fee, so they receive, I think it's $9,100 per month, and if they meet their management incentives, there's a management bonus at the end of the year. This year, it looks like the only fee that they may achieve would be the NPS score.
Okay, and their the $9,100 a month is included in the expenses?
Yes.
So I'm sorry, so we're clear, go back to that one second. You asked, because you didn't have the exact number, but we think in 2022, we think we're just down a little bit, like you said, 50,000 or something?
Yes, correct.
So by next year, we're positive, if we're talking about Power Wellness, and those are the projections, that last line of what they think they'll be going forward.
That's correct. That's what they put in their pro forma for the next 5 years.
And we include equipment expenses in that total expenses?
Yes.
Equipment replacement. So the only thing we're not putting in is building capital?
Correct.
Is that correct? But all the other capital, all the maintenance capital, so all of the equipment and any other small
All the
maintenance items,
pumps, all the,
capitals.
right. This past summer, we cleaned all the pools, and that included an acid wash of all the decks on the pools.
That's
and that
included
came out
in
of
the
operating.
expenses?
Right.
Where is it outlined, the village expectations regarding opening, closing? I know we had an issue with them years ago with.
Let them finish, and then we've
Well,
addressed that.
I'll answer that just real quick. So one of the things that we're going to do with whoever gets this contract in the end, we're going to make sure that's outlined in the contract. So we'll be working with Dennis and Ann to make sure that contract includes that.
Yeah, so to Trustee Reardon's point, the Orland Health and Fitness would not open when we opened our sportsplex, and we told them to open, they would not open. And they said, we're following the state rules. That's not happening. They're following our rules.
I addressed that with their CFO, and he agreed that they would do whatever the village asked.
Okay, that needs to be ironclad in the contract, Dennis.
Yep.
I think what needs to be also addressed is that you may get, I mean, who knows what comes down the line, but something, if anything similar comes down the line that happened in 2020, you may have employees who just decide not to come in then. Even though the company can say that, then they have to be responsible for replacement or for some sort of, fee sharing or reduction in our cost if their employees just decide not to come in for whatever reason.
Right, because what ended up happening is they were getting paid,
Exactly. That's more important.
and we weren't seeing any benefits, and we weren't doing that with our employees, so that cannot happen.
Okay.
So that has to be just as tight as it gets. So.
So this is a revenue comparison. So HealthPlex projects membership dues at $2.9 million. Power Wellness projects it at $3 million. Enrollment fees, so this is a big one here. HealthPlex projects a little over $100,000, where Power Wellness projects only $16,000. And that's worthy of noting as you look down below, and this is an old slide, sorry. The enrollment fees from last year were only $2,487. So enrollment fees really are not a part of the fitness trend any longer. People expect zero enrollment or discounted enrollment, so you don't want to rely on that high level enrollment. Massage fees, they're projecting HealthPlex is projecting $107,000. Power Wellness is projecting $59,000, and last year the massage revenues were only $38,000. So again, I think it's an over-projection of that revenue and over-dependence on something that you have to sell. And probably the biggest concerning one is the personal training at $364,000 as compared to Power Wellness's $135,000, and then compared to actual sales last year at $99,000. That's a lot of personal training to sell, and I'm not sure that population can support that level of training. And to be honest, I don't think any fitness center would want to rely on that level of just personal training. Generally, in the fitness industry, you want to rely on your memberships. That's where the revenue generally comes from. So to put over-reliance on personal training and massage is probably not a good strategy.
Mr. Chairman?
Trustee Milani?
Just a question around that. How are they coming up with such a large number? Were they like doubling the rates, or?
I don't know what research they did, so they project a certain amount of personal training sessions per month.
And I think you're right, too, that certain populations that use, gym memberships, things like that, not everybody's into personal training, so yeah, it'd be tough to sell almost 3 times as much.
And that's on top of paying your regular dues.
Right.
And where does the lease of the space for therapy and all that, where does that go into revenues, or is that separate for the village?
That's none of these fees here. So we have a contract with NU for those fees for the lease of the rehabilitation space. Oops. Some just quick highlights from the two sides there. So HealthPlex does have good qualifications. They had good references. We think that they overstated their expenses by omitting some key facility and IT expenses. Again, we believe that they overrated or overstated their revenues, too much dependence on enrollment fees, personal training, massage, and then peripheral revenues. One of the things that let me back up here. Programming, sorry, I skipped over this one. So the HealthPlex projects 50 group exercise classes a week as compared to Power Wellness that has 75, as compared to currently the center offers 76. So you can imagine how happy the membership might be if you're cutting 25 classes a week. Some of the classes there that are very popular are the water classes, and as a swimmer, I see those classes in there, very popular. HealthPlex projects 4 classes a week as compared to Power Wellness, which is currently offering 26, and their proposal offers 30 per week. HealthPlex actually notes in their proposal that they would be charging for classes that are traditionally included free with a membership, where Power Wellness includes those and only charges for specialty classes like a Pilates type class. The other thing worth noting is that the HealthPlex in their proposal actually includes some recreational classes, and you can see that with some of their expenses where they have swim instructors and basketball instructors, those kinds of things. And we do those things at Sportsplex, so we really don't want that to compete there with our own programming. And then again, the highlights. So picking back up, so again, HealthPlex has good qualifications and favorable references. Again, we think they overstated their revenues and understated their expenses. I also think, or we also think, they're unfamiliar with this market. So if you look at some of their fees in the proposal, what they're paying their staff, we think that that's overstated and understated. So they're projecting $75 for a personal trainer per hour and $18 an hour for someone who's teaching a group exercise class, and just don't think that's probably going to make it there. Power Wellness, again, highly qualified with very strong references. They're a large operator with a strong support system in the corporate office. We believe that their expenses and revenues are realistic for our market and based on membership sales. They're also medically certified with Medical Fitness Association. We're named Medical Fitness Center of the Year in 2019, and just this past weekend, their fitness center manager was named Rising Star of the Year, so they've received that award as well. I'd be happy to answer any other questions.
Mr. Mayor.
Trustee Reardon.
You may have put it in one of the very first ones, but is the cost for the two operators to the village? I mean, is this contract going up significantly from last year? Are they about the same?
The HealthPlex actually is slightly less. The fitness center or the Power Wellness is slightly more, but I think again it's because they're more realistic in their projections.
Yeah, I mean,
the costs are up from every year as they go up.
Sure. And I mean, I kind of agree with you the way this is playing out. I think that it sounds like where we would want to go with Power Wellness. But if their costs were so much more than the other one, that may make a difference in terms of the differences, where they're making their mistakes. But they're going up, but not significantly different than the other provider.
Correct. Okay. And I think one of the biggest fears as well is if a new operator comes in and strikes out, that's a big risk for that center. Right now they're pretty close to getting to 4,000 members, and we can't afford for that membership to take a backward turn. Before the village acquired the facility, it took that backwards turn. The facility was poorly maintained, and the village has invested in the facility and built it back up to that 4,000. So I don't think we could go backwards again, because then the expenses are going to fall on the village with a very large subsidy. So that would be why we would look at that recommendation, because I think it's more favorable to achieving our financial goals.
Mr. Mayor?
Trustee Radiszewski.
Have you shared the demographics, the existing membership, the demographics that we have at this Sportsplex with both of these vendors who are putting these proposals together? So that way they know? I mean, because I think just based on those demographics, the needs are different than, say, the Sportsplex.
Correct.
So they're aware.
Mr. Chairman?
Trustee Malani.
2 questions. I saw something in the proposal as well about the hiring of employees. The current employees are Power Wellness employees. They're not Orland Park employees, correct?
That's correct.
Right. So they would have to hire Power Wellness's employees?
They would have to try to hire those employees that are there, and that those that didn't agree to be hired, they would have to recruit new staff.
Okay. And then the second question, if I remember correctly, there was a point in time where we were analyzing whether we could do this in-house versus a contract like this. Is this the end result of that analysis, that we're probably better off going this route?
No, we started to look at that, and as we did it, we think we could do it cheaper, but to be honest, I don't think we could do it as well. Being a medically certified facility, Power Wellness has achieved that level of being able to work within that scope, and we actually think they could do it better than we can.
So the cost of the, resources and the professionals that we would need to have would be a little higher than what we'd be able to.
And the expertise. They have that expertise where we do the sportsplex, we do it really well, but it's not really medically integrated there.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments? So I have a few comments on this. So for those, well, since most of you weren't here except for maybe Ray and Regina, Nabia, and me, and Alex, we were left a bag of crap with this, to put it in a nutshell. We were left, essentially, this was a land swap deal, but it took into account nothing for the capital costs associated with this, and we have sunk $5 to $6 million of capital into this at least.
When we first took over the facility, the pool area was so bad that it actually dripped.
So there was a lot of things that we had to deal with because they knew they were closing this for a long time, so they didn't invest any money in it. And we're still dealing with some of that. We've got to change carpets next year, I think. We're replacing the carpet. I like the fact that Power Wellness includes the equipment because it looked like the other group was just going to let the equipment go to crap, and then we would have had the same problem with the next group that comes in, right? So we definitely can't do that. Obviously, this is a facility, I think we generally get really good feedback on the membership there, and they like the staff and how it's run. I think, is that true?
Absolutely.
I mean, that's what it seems to me.
Their NPS score runs in the 70s.
Yeah. So, but as Trustee Reardon pointed out, quite frankly, they aggravated us all a lot by not opening up when they should have been open, and they basically took our money, and that does not sit very well with me. With that said, I think if we tried to transition to someone else, I think we'd be facing a nightmare of people that are not happy, and it seems to be running well, and we should continue to go with that. I would pay attention to the future to make sure that they're meeting the goals and they're starting to make some money on it, because they should. They've had COVID as an excuse now. The previous time the excuse was it was transitioning. Now they've had COVID. Now this time, hopefully, there won't be any of those events for the next couple of years, and we'll see this move forward, or at least on an operating basis, we're seeing a little bit of cash flow. Obviously, it will never cover all the capital needs that are there, but at least on that basis. So,
Mr. Mayor, I think it's important to point out that only one other vendor, completed the RFP. So, I mean, if we have to do this again next year, I mean, I'm sure we put it out to everyone we can think of, but try to get as much interest.
well, I think the other option is probably doing it on our own. That's probably the other option, and I think we have to plan for that for a bit before we do that, because I think that's a whole. And I know you say it's cheaper, but does that include all the ongoing the retirement costs and all the other costs that are layered in with associated with a fully loaded employees of the village on municipal retirement systems and the like? That might not be so, it might not end up being so much cheaper to do it that way. So, okay. Call the roll.
Trustee Malani?
Aye.
Trustee Compass?
Aye.
Trustee Healy?
Aye.
Trustee Katsinas?
Aye.
Trustee Reardon?
Aye.
Trustee Rashewski?
Aye.
Mayor Peacock?
Aye.
Amending Village Code Commission's Ordinance.
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Compass.
I move to recommend adopting an ordinance entitled an ordinance amending Title II, Chapter 8 of the Orland Park Village Code regarding the Veterans Commission.
Second.
And the rationale for this is a couple things. One is, and this is true of the Legion Post and the VFW Post as well as a veteran, is that the people who are active and really volunteer a lot, the reality is they start getting older and then they start volunteering less because they just don't have, they either don't have the physical ability to do it, or the things that just happen as we age. And I think the same thing happens with our Veterans Commission over time. And the problem we also have is that and similar to the VFW and the American Legion posts, is that the veteran pool is getting smaller because after Vietnam, the draft was eliminated. So Vietnam vets, you still have a fairly sizable pool, but they're in their 70s. And so your pool after that's going to get smaller and smaller and smaller. So the idea here is that we want our Veterans Commission does a lot of great work, and they really work hard. But it's hard to find people sometimes that, that live locally, because a lot of them are, 30, 40, have families, don't have the time to give. So the idea here is to, if they're part of either of the posts that are the Orland Park posts that are housed here, since they're part of the Orland Park community by being part of those posts, to allow them to be on our Veterans Commission, which is slightly different than our other commissions, which require residency. Except our Economic Development Commission requires residency or an Orland Park business. So in that way, it's similar. Any other comments? Call the roll.
Trustee Compass?
Aye.
Trustee Reardon?
Aye.
Trustee Healy?
Aye.
Trustee Katsinas?
Aye.
Trustee Malani?
Aye.
Trustee Rashewski?
Aye.
Mayor Pika?
Aye.
Parks Master Plan update.
Before we do the update, I just want to give you a brief, you're going to give the update so you can stand up there, but just a brief comment on this is that, just as a reminder to everyone, we've approved this. This is happening. We've started the construction. This is the update of where we're at with design, permitting, all of the things we need to do this. And if you recall, we did this because we pushed this forward a little bit earlier because we saw the financial issues that were going to come down the road. So we were able to get rates that, I think right now mortgage rates are 7.4 or something. At the time they were 3.5. We saw this coming, and so we pushed it ahead earlier so that we could, because we knew that there would be some bonding associated with this, and that's why we did it early. And so we're still going to be facing that crunch. We knew it when we approved this, but that's why we approved it when we did, is so that we could get it on the books when it made sense and not end up losing the projects because of the overwhelmingness of events. And so this is just an update in that process, and we are still on track. I think I'm having them both done by the end of next year, right?
We're hoping to do that, yes, depending on permitting.
So, okay.
Mayor and board members, I'm excited to present an update to the master plan. This is Schussler Park, and one of the things to note as we look at this is there's some items that are outlined in red and some in blue. Those in red are in the first phase, and that includes the highlight of the site, and that's those two fields on your right there. Those are two full football fields that can also be used for soccer. As you look at them from the bottom of the screen to the top, that's two full soccer fields, or they can be divided east and west, left and right, into 4 fields. That gives a lot of practice space. That includes a bleacher area with the press box, includes a maintenance storage room. Over on the right there, you can see a new parking lot, which nets us about 42 more parking spaces. And then over on the left corner, top of the screen there, is a new sledding hill. So the sledding hill that is currently on the right will be relocated into that space. Plan also includes for a phase 2, and we've applied for an OSLAD grant in the amount of $2 million. 50% of that would be refundable or reimbursable to the village, so that's been submitted already. That would include a new playground, a new basketball court, and restrooms, as well as some additional amenities out there, picnic amenities, that type of thing. I'll let you look at that just for a minute.
And this also, part of this is also the stormwater part of the project, which expands the pond a little bit, and then obviously cleans up the pond, dredges the pond, and also fixes the storm-related issues so that we don't see the wetness and flooding that we've had, which made that field relatively unusable.
Correct. The stormwater is a big part of this. So Khurshid and Joel have been a great help with meeting with White and their engineers to go through that part. And you'll see that here. This is just the field laid out here, so the football fields and the parking lot. And then you can really see it here in the timeline. I'm going to pull up my cheat sheet just because it's a little hard to see there.
So another key point too is, if I'm not mistaken, I don't think that I am, we're using a lot of the storage as well is going to be underneath the fields, correct?
Correct.
Because of and this is one of the reasons I've heard people say, well, why are we doing turf? It costs extra money. Well, one, we need to test turf. We need to find a place to see if turf works on a permanent basis, and it makes sense to do on a smaller on a smaller scale, which this is. The other thing is that with turf, because of the aggregates and everything that are underneath it, unlike a grass field, you can actually do water storage in big events, and that helps us with the overall water problem that we have here. So there's a really good reason and smart reason why we're testing turf in a good location, and two, turf really helps us solve the other problems that we have there.
That's a great point. The other thing it does is it helps us with our soccer organization. So they frequently get rained out. Grass turf wears much faster, and so when that grass wears out, they get very upset about the goal mouths and the center fields and all those areas because it's not playable. So this being turf, artificial turf, won't endure that, so we can use it 100% of the time, 7 days a week if we have that need.
And the other benefit too with turf is that football really beats up turf.
Absolutely.
Probably more than any other sport by far.
Right.
And that eliminates this problem. We won't have that on grass because it's a turf field. So.
Exactly. So on the timeline there, you can see that the drainage study is complete. We reviewed that last week. Permitting with NWRD has been submitted. The parking and traffic study, so we saw that as a necessary thing, and we're doing that for actually Schussler Park, Centennial Park, and Centennial Park West to make sure that all it works in the neighborhoods. The Army Corps of Engineers permit is being submitted this month. We're also then expecting comments back from NWRD. After we get their comments back, we'll resubmit that to them. And then again, we'll be getting our first comments back from the Army Corps of Engineers later in December. Winter season is going to be a busy time. We'll go before the Plan Commission. We'll resubmit after the comments back to the Army Corps of Engineers, and then we'll wait for a second response. We expect 100% CD review in January or February, and then completed construction documents in February. I hope to present to the board in February or March the full plans for approval, after which we would bid the package and then do a bid opening later in March. After that, we find an acceptable contractor. We would go to the board for approval of that contract, finish up permits with MWRD and the Army Corps of Engineers, get the village's permit, and then hopefully break ground in the spring. And then construction would take place in the spring and summer. And then if all things fall in place as they should, we hope to open the Schussler Park late summer, early fall. On this next page here, this is all the details in the estimate of Schussler Park. The total price tag as presented is $9,500,000. You can see all the different costs there highlighted all the way through. I won't go through all that. Some of those costs we may be able to bear ourselves, doing some of those things in-house. Probably some that are worth pointing out at the bottom there are the soft costs, the design contingency at 6.3%, the construction contingency at 5%, the A&E and DD and CD documents at 5%, permitting at 241, A&E bidding at 30,000, and testing at 15.5.
Let's push really hard to not use the contingencies, and also let's push really hard for that timeline so that it's open next fall.
Absolutely, and the people we're working with understand that.
Mr. Mayor?
Trustee Healy.
When were these estimates put out? I mean, were these from early in the summer?
No, these are recent.
Recent?
Yes.
Okay, so I mean, that's what I wanted to know. There's been a lot of inflation and things like that
There have been, and they have a 4% inflation melted into the cost, depending on when this gets out. But these are recent. These are as recent as August, September.
Thanks, Freddie.
Sure. The other part of the presentation is Centennial Park West, so you can see some renderings there of the stage area and the site as it exists today. In this next slide here, you can see all the different facets of this, and that includes these vendor areas here. So these are designed to be 20 by 20 spaces for taste type of tents. This is a VIP area. The stage area, which we'll look at in a little more detail in just a second. This area looks like fixed seating. It's not fixed seating. This is a stamped concrete area. This is the entryway in. Currently, they're projecting this site to accommodate 4,000, even though it really accommodates 6,000. And what they base that on is exiting off of these asphalt paths. So there's one entrance exit here and one here. If we were to need a need for 6,000, we could extend this path to join over here, and then we could add another entrance exit and increase that attendance. So that's what's being looked at by Development Services to determine that. The stage area here, that's the front of the stage, so that's the appearance.
Can you go back a slide?
Sure.
Can you point out where the existing hill is, and then point out where the new hill is going to be?
Thanks for bringing that up. This will all be pushed back. So this current hill here, which limits our view lines and our seating, will all be pushed back to this area here.
No, I believe it's going to get pushed all the way back behind the fence, correct? It's going to be back further
All the way back to the fence?
behind the fence, I believe.
I think it'll go here, and then this will be flattened out some, but this will give us the capacity to see all the way back. And then the whole site will also be built in with some conduit here, so for future delay speakers, potential video screens will all be built into the grounds throughout this area here. This box here is a mixed location, so you always see the sound mix guys. They'll be in this location right here. This will also be an ADA seating area in this location.
And Ray, also the fence is, at this point, we're not planning on putting the fence up, correct?
Correct. There's an option in the bid for this fence, but right now we're looking at either renting the fence or bidding this out ourselves separately. We think we could do it cheaper if we decide to do that.
And just so everyone knows, the rationale for that is we're going to do a lot of free stuff out there, and the fence can easily be added after the fact. And we'll test it out to see with the free events and the taste and everything else if maybe we're just better off not putting a fence up there and operating it as a park on a normal basis without fencing.
Right.
Plus the expense of the fence initially is about $500,000, so save some money on the project.
We thought about naming rights for like those private sections, like, the Mercedes-Benz private, you can rent out the Chase Bank.
We'll do sponsorships
That's
for
what I mean,
sure.
for like
So
for the privacy, the private ones and stuff.
yeah, we
hope
do
to be able to-
sponsorships now like that, so we certainly would consider that.
And this area here potentially can be used to be rented out for one or for multiple sponsors. And then that's the rendering of what the stage will look like. So this roof system actually overhangs far enough to keep the band dry in this area. This side here from the front is all storage. We'll see that in another view. And then this is all the band support. So this is all indoor areas on this section over here. That's that flat seating area that I mentioned. So it's not actually seating, it's just a concrete area, and then the grass seating, the lawn seating in this area here.
Personally, I think a $10 million naming rights for Silver Cross or Northwestern or UFC Field would be just fine. Duly, I'm not that interested in. It's a weird name.
This is the schematic of the stage itself. So very large stage, 40 by 60, includes a monitor and guitar wings. So these are the sound guys that work on stage to make it sound so great. We have some storage in this location here and some electrical. Transition area is backstage. So when one band's on stage and another has to get on stage, they can transition in and out in these areas. These are all the band rooms. So now you see we have tents backstage, and we do different things like having RVs, and we're having to rent those. Instead, we'll have these green rooms. So there'll be 3 green rooms in these areas here, one of which has a shower space, and then there'll be a hospitality suite and a manager's room. So those are all for the level of bands that we're looking to have in the future. These are all support options that are needed. The site's also going to be built. This will all be asphalt back here, so it'll be big enough to support 2 semis and then another box truck for unloading. So again, these bigger acts travel with this kind of gear, and so they'll have to be able to load and unload, and there'll be some additional parking for crew in this area back here. Both the front and the back of the stage will have ramp areas, and those are what you see here, as well as stairwells.
Do we have any kind of agreement with the Metro, the parking, that all the parking that's back there is going to be usable for these events, or do we need to do that? I just don't know how that works. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, we do.
So Ray mentioned that we're going to be doing a traffic parking study as well, but as far as our agreements with Metro, when they're not being used for commuter parking, we get to use them. And so that'll be factored into the traffic and parking study.
I mean, I've lived there in that area now 3 years, and I've seen maybe 5 cars ever
Right.
in that whole other side of
Right.
the train tracks there. So
Yeah, and we're going to factor both sides and some of the parking from Centennial as well.
This is the truss area of the roof. So right now, again, when we have shows, we rent the stage and everything is hung, and we have to rent different trusses. We still have to rent some of the trusses that get hung from these beams, so that's what these are. The bands all have very specific lighting and sound requirements, so you can't really buy those in-house. You have to do those by the rider. So the companies that we hire will still have to have like a scissor lift to hang from these trusses, but it gives us the structure to hang all the different things at any level that we want to do in this area right here. And again, the timeline. It's my right page here. So again, we've already been out for a permit with MWRD back in September, and we have received comments back. This is the same traffic study that we're currently in progress with, and again, it'll include Centennial Park, because Centennial Park is part of the master plan in the future, so we won't have to do it a second time. We will later then submit for a building permit to the village, and then also resubmit to MWRD for more comments. We hope to go to the Plan Commission again in January, then receive construction documents in January as well. Hope to again present to the board January, February, the plans for Centennial Park, and then issue the bid documents in February. We'll then open the bid documents shortly after in February or March, and then come to the board for approval to award that contract. We'll go to final VOP permit in the spring, hope to break ground in the spring, and then begin construction and continue that spring and summer. Construction may go into the fall. It just depends how fast the construction takes place. It's a pretty significant building. The building itself, I think, is estimated at $5 million, so we want to make sure we do that right and not rush that. And then you can see the total cost here at this this number. So we're at the stage building again is $5.5 million, with the total project at a little over $12 million. You can see the breakdown throughout the document there. The budget does include some equipment that'll be in-house, so there'll be some in-house lighting and audio-visual, so that'll allow us to do small things. So if we're having just a presentation out there, something where we're doing an announcement, say for Market at the Park, rather than having to bring a separate sound system in, there'll be a built-in sound system. It also includes a projector to do movies in the park out there, so that's part of that out in that cost as well. There's contingency again, so we have a high contingency that, again, as the mayor said, we'll hope to keep that in check at 15%. Escalation per year at this 4%, general conditions 8%, and the C&M pre-con fee at 4%, A&E fees at $486. So again, the total is the $12.6 million here.
One of the critical things here is when this was built for, as we know, it was built for concerts with no electricity. So, and obviously with a whole area that gets any kind of rain, it floods because the water doesn't actually run to the pond. So some pretty significant, and putting a hill right in the middle of it. So there was a few things that were not done particularly well. So we're gonna try and make sure we get it right the first time, or the second time anyways.
This has actually been, as you know, an area that's flooded significantly and impacting a concert last year in June.
Mr. Mayor?
Trustee Healy.
Ray, do you have any information on any other villages that have attempted such a venue like this?
Sure. Or most villages have venues similar to this, but I wouldn't say as nice as ours. So there is one in Aurora, so it's I forget the name offhand, but Aurora has a facility, and they do quite well there. They do concerts every Saturday and Sunday, Friday, Saturday, depends on the weekend, and they've been very successful there. There's one in Hammond that does very well. Can't think of any off the top of my head, but there's a number.
Well.
Pardon me?
There's one in Valpo as well.
Valparaiso as well. There's a number of them that do quite well. So when you have a facility like this that has this level of support, that gives us the opportunity to attract larger bands, and then it's a matter of whether what level of bands the board wants to try to bring in. Bands perform at all different levels. You can get a band for $5,000. You can get one for $500,000 and more. So the nice thing about this stage is this will allow any level of support. So one of the things that we specifically did was to make sure that the stage was large enough and high enough and had all those support systems so that we could do that. The venue View in Aurora originally was $10 million, and they started a $10 million project this past year just for the green room areas that we're already building into our site.
Do we have any expectations of revenue?
Not at this point, because it really depends on the level of band that you bring in.
American English and things would be
A good warm-up act for sure.
Well, Bill, we've got it on the list. We know that it's important for you to get a Glenn Miller cover band. So,
Glenn Miller, I would-
and we got plenty of room for that now on the stage.
That's
And we'll
for Mrs.
continue to
Haley.
host the
I'm a
taste.
little more updated, so.
And the taste will enjoy the new site as well, and with American English.
Yeah, and just so everyone realizes, this is being built to accommodate the taste. So, and the market in the park, because when we undergo the MDA, that's not going to be a location for that anymore, and it's actually going to be a vibrant area all in its own. So this is going to be the place where we have the taste, we have the market on the park, we have our concerts in the park, both free and charged, and so it's going to be all of those things. So
Movies in the park, we can.
it's going to be a very utilized area, which makes a lot of sense given the fact that we have Centennial Park, right on the other side of the train tracks as well. Any other comments? Any non-scheduled citizens and visitors? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Call the roll.
Trustee Compass?
Aye.
Trustee Malani?
Aye.
Trustee Healy?
Aye.
Trustee Katsinas?
Aye.
Trustee Reardon?
Aye.
Trustee Rashewski?
Aye.
Mayor Pika?
Aye. We're adjourned. See you at 7.